My life and my career have been about a series of reinventions, in my opinion, that started with what I refer to as channeling Shirley Temple, Jenna. Started when I was about 3 years old, and everything was sort of waterfalls and butterflies. And we didn't watch a whole lot of television in my house. We had a little black and white TV that my dad had actually constructed himself. No, yes, I am that old, actually. I know I'm wearing heels tonight, and I'm trying really hard to look like I'm 20, but I'm not. And so we didn't watch a whole lot of TV, but so the little bit of TV that we did watch really sort of stuck out in my head, and nothing resonated more than this particular instance where I saw a commercial, and it was these little girls that were wearing pink ballet leotards and Jordache jeans, and they were attempting to show how stretchy the jeans were and how flexible they could be in these jeans. And in that moment, something clicked. Now, I don't know what leads up to a 3-year-old's perception of television. Maybe I thought there were robots in the TV. Maybe I thought that people had been magically beamed down into the box in my living room. But in that split second, I sort of, I guess, caught a glimpse of my future, and I looked at my mom, and I said, that's what I'm gonna do with my life. And she said, be a ballet dancer? And in this really dramatic way that only 3-year-olds and actresses, or both, know how to be, I said, no, I'm gonna be in the TV. And my parents laughed and thought it was a passing phase. And they thought, sure, today she wants to be an actress, tomorrow a doctor, next week the President of the United States. But it never went away. That passion really stuck with me. A few years later, my father discovered that he worked with a woman. I'm sure he was probably complaining or lamenting about the fact that his youngest daughter wanted to be an actress and he had no idea what the hell to do with her. And he discovered that this woman that he worked with brought her son to New York for auditions. I'm from a small town in Connecticut, so we were only a train's length away from New York. And lo and behold, she said, well, this is really, it's ironic. Please. Yesterday, I decided to become a personal manager for children. And I would love to sit down and meet with her and see what I think. And so I do not in any small way think that that was a coincidence. But she very quickly decided that I was her new pet project. And she started taking me to New York. We would take the train in every day, or nearly every day, and I would go on auditions for commercials and films and small roles in episodic television series. And eventually, she absconded with half of my money, and my parents decided they would take over the taking me into New York for auditions. By the way, I'm going to interject for just one quick second and say that I know that we were all given a sort of 10-minute general time period. If any of you watched Blossom, you know 2 things about me. 1, I'm a fast talker. 2, brevity is not my thing. So I'm warning you about this now. But moving on, I think that my parents at that moment realized that it wasn't a passing phase and that this was something that was honestly a part of my life. And I auditioned for Blossom in New York. It moved me out to LA. And the rest is kind of history, or maybe TV history. And I realize that's the Reader's Digest version, but I tell you all of that to say success for me was always, there was nothing else. There was no alternative. I had blinders. And part of that is because I had this beautiful innocence of being a young girl. All I knew were hopes and dreams and infinite possibilities. And at some point in my life, of course, I learned about heartache and rejection and financial loss and the things that we all sort of learn about in bits and pieces along the course of our careers and our lives. But at that time, I think if I wanted to slide down a rainbow or ride a unicorn that sneezed purple glitter, I would have made sure that that happened for myself. It was all waterfalls and butterflies. And that's essentially what I chalk up my initial success to, is wearing those blinders. It's knowing nothing else. It's believing that nobody could say no, nobody could tell me any differently. This was my lot in life. This is what I was going to do. I was going to be the little girl in the Jordache jeans and the pink leotard, and nobody could tell me any differently. Thankfully, not too many people tried. I'm pretty stubborn. Ask my husband. You can't really tell me anything. And so that's really what I chalk up that success at such a young age to. I think I became sitcom actress Jenna, this small town girl from Connecticut, got on a television series because she believed there was nothing else out there. There was no other possibility. And so sitcom actress Jenna, or as some people like to refer to her as child star Jenna, which is terribly uncomfortable for me, I'll admit. I know I've noticed some tweets going out this week about how I'm going to talk about being a child star. I'm not going to talk about being a child star, for the record. That is sort of fame is sort of a quirky beast. Being a child star or being referred to as a child star is kind of an odd thing because it means, in my eyes, that you're a has-been, which I'm just not willing to be at just shy of 40. But in being sitcom actress Jenna, I got very used to the life that I led. And God bless my parents. They really always made sure that there was humility involved in raising me, that I went back and forth from Los Angeles to Connecticut, and that we remained a very close-knit family, and that I understood what it was like to be a sort of normal kid, whatever normal means. And yet, as uncomfortable as I am with the idea of being a child star, or of, I guess, the fame that it offers, because in a weird way, having success at a young age, the fame that I had and the success that I had were inextricably tied. They're really, really hard to separate in my eyes and in everyone else's. I think when other people see me, they see my resume, and I get that. I appreciate that. But I think when Blossom ended, I felt a very big sense of loss, of grief, of the show ending, of having a success that meant so much to so many people and not just me. And that was really strange. That's a really sort of odd thing. Hollywood provides a very intense and warped magnifying glass. And I existed under it for so long that it defined me in everyone else's eyes, and also in a way in mine, because I hadn't been on my own long enough to really get a sense of self beyond that. And so when Blossom ended, there's never been, for as uncomfortable as fame was, there's never been anything quite as uncomfortable as not having it anymore. And feeling like there was a loss not only of the show, but of that relevance. And it was a very transitional time in my life when Blossom ended. I was 18. My parents moved back to Connecticut. I'm the oldest of 4, so they had a lot of other kids to worry about too. And I started college, and the show ended, and I sort of went through a mild state of depression, I guess. I sort of had what I like to refer to as a mid-career crisis, where I did not purchase new boobs or a pink Lamborghini, but I did wear a lot of black, and I memorized a lot of Dorothy Parker poems. In fact, I have the end of one tattooed on my back, so been there, done that. And there was sort of this cloud, I think, that hung over my head that said, you're 18 and you've been successful. People know you as successful, so now what do you do? And that's sort of a heavy thing, because I started in this industry because I loved it. I didn't know I got paid. When I got my first paycheck and my parents showed it to me, I went, I get paid for it too? It was amazing to me. It was this incredible thing for me that I could do something that I love this much and actually get a check for it. I hope we're all that lucky that we get to do something we're passionate about and get paid for it. And so, but when the show ended, I started asking myself questions, and I never asked myself, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Have I done the wrong thing? I love it too much to have asked myself that. But I did ask a lot of questions like, have I peaked too early? Can this continue? Where do I go from here? And I think I started to wonder if I could ever achieve the level of success that I'd already had, which is so bizarre to think about when you're only 18. And you feel like you've got your whole life ahead of you, and everybody else sees your life as already having existed in a sense. And when I was in high school, I had a drug and alcohol awareness curriculum that I had to satisfy. I followed the curriculum of my school in Connecticut. And because I couldn't attend physically, I was tutored in Los Angeles. I still had to satisfy this curriculum, so they said, okay, well, write a 20-page paper. And as much as I love to write, and I do love writing, I was not looking forward to writing this 20-page paper. So I decided I would interview a woman that I worked with behind the scenes on Blossom. And she was a recovering drug addict. She'd been a coke addict for about 12 years. And she'd been in recovery for about 9. And she very openly and honestly sat down with me and talked to me. And one of the things that she said resonated with me above all else. She said, when I did coke for the first time, I didn't become an addict because I loved it so much. I became an addict because that first time of getting high was so mind-blowing that I couldn't imagine continuing to try to go back to that and to achieve that high again. And I never could quite get there, and it drove me mad. Now, I'm not going to sit here and stupidly say that fame is like addiction. I'm sure for some people maybe it is, but I think my point in all of that is that sometimes the level of success or the level of fame that you've had or the level of addiction that you've had or the level of any goal that you've set for yourself that you feel everyone has appreciated to the point that it equals success, it doesn't necessarily mean that the success through everyone else's lens should be the success in your own. And thankfully, before I spent too much money in therapy, I ended up on another show and realized that maybe I wasn't just pulling the wool over everybody's eyes, and maybe I wasn't just some average teenage girl with acne and a big crush on Joey Lawrence like everybody else, cleverly disguised as a famous sitcom actress. Because I did think that for a while. I mean, it's hard not to think that. I think regardless of what you're successful at, it's really hard not to feel like you've convinced everyone that you're better than you are. I mean, I hope that there was some talent in there somewhere that helped my career along. But at the end of the day, like, I'm sitting here talking to all of you, and I don't feel like I'm better in some crazy weird way. Like, I'm not more talented. I'm sure that I could point to anybody in this audience and you would have a talent that far supersedes mine in some capacity or another. I think it's the path that some of us are put on, or that we find for ourselves, that we manage to find for ourselves if we're that blessed. And so ultimately, at the end of Blossom, I became this, like I said, this is sort of dark and brooding, and I ended up on the Parkers, which was my second series, and I feel like I won the lotto twice. I felt like I hit the Super Bowl twice in a row, and I was humbled and blessed enough to be on a second series for 5 years that also went into syndication and thankfully still is. But again, when that show ended, I thought, oh my gosh, who am I? Where I'm lost again. It's over. Where do I go from here? And I felt like I was down in a well, like I was trying to claw the earth to get out, because the only path that I knew to success was that little opening in the top of it, and there was no way to get there, and I just kept panicking and clawing at it. And sometimes I think when you have a vision of what success looks like, you have to sit back and assess it. And that's when you notice that there's a rope coiled in the corner. Oh, of course. Or the stepping stones on the side of the wall that you never noticed before. And every now and then you sit back and you assess and you think, oh, well, the reason I'm down in this well is because I'm meant to build ladders for a living. That's how I get out. And it changes the face of your success. And you know what? The face of my success changed when I sat back at the end of the Parkers. And I looked at my life and I thought, it doesn't necessarily have to be this auditioning daily grind in the middle of LA where there are mudslides and smog and rampant narcissism and all of these other crazy things. I can change that. I can do something different, and success can be what I want it to be. So suddenly I realized maybe this is about follow your heart instead of everybody else's expectations, Jenna. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like maybe that's when I feel like I became an adult, is that I realized I learned how to say no. That was the first thing. And the second thing was that I realized that everybody else's perception of my success and what my resume should look like in order to mean success weren't nearly as important as what I wanted it to be or what I saw it to be, and that fame didn't have to be inextricably tied to that success in order for it to be success. And so I'd been going back and forth to Nashville, writing music during all of my hiatus weeks on the Parkers. And I thought, I wonder what Nashville has to offer a lost and somewhat heartbroken, Starbucks-addicted, Yankee-turned Valley girl who has a lot of hats. So I packed up my dogs, and I sold my house, and I moved out here. And a year later, I met my husband, Brad, who's sitting over there. I told him he couldn't sit in the front row because I was afraid if I looked at him, I'd cry. And a few years after that, we got married and had our first daughter, Gray. And then a year and a half ago, we had our second daughter, Marlo. And my love and my passion for my family and for my children especially led me to writing. And it's something that I've always loved in whatever capacity, be it music or scripts that I've never, ever finished. By the way, I've never finished a script in my lifetime. Just fun little factoid. But I suddenly realized, like, maybe I want to write about my kids. Like, I love them. They're funny. They crack me up every day. Everybody else's kids seem to crack them up too. So maybe we've got something in common. Maybe we can share this. And it led to being a published author. And I wrote my first book, as Brad mentioned, Situation Momedy. Shameless plug, signing over there. And then the next book is due, the sequel, which is Situation Momedy, a very special episode in toddlerdom, is due out February of next year. And I really feel like I can credit Nashville for that. I feel like Nashville made me realize that it's okay to embrace success that not everybody else thinks is successful. It's okay to be on the path and appreciate the small victories and say, today, success to me looks like taking my kids to Costco and not having a meltdown in aisle 3. Good stuff. Some days success looks like typing with my left hand while I fill a sippy cup with milk in this hand and pick up toys with my toes. I'm okay with that. That's good. I'm all right with that. I know someday I will be back on another series. Maybe it'll be Situation Momedy, the series. Who knows? But I'm thankful to Nashville for sort of centering me and making me realize that success looks like what we want it to look like. not what everybody else expects it to be. So look at success through your own lens. And I guess that would be my point tonight. Thank you.
Did